Hi, this is Joshua Kulp for Daf Shevui. We're learning Masechet Ketubot. We are on Daf Kuf Aleph. And I wanted to go through a machoket that appears on the bottom of Kuf Amud Bet and continues to the beginning of Kuf Aleph. And I think it's a fundamental, foundational machoket between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua. It echoes out through Shmuel and Rav. And as usual, what happens in rabbinic machokot is we get an argument about the details, the ramifications of a particular way of understanding a particular law or a worldview or a certain social institute. And here, the institute that we're really arguing about, we can understand it twofold, is either marriage itself or really rabbinically instituted marriage. As a background, we need to remind ourselves of what the rule of the Mima'enet is, what the case of the Mima'enet, the girl who refuses marriage. According to the rabbinic reading of the Torah, a Ktana or a Katan, a minor, cannot really engage in marriage, not because the rabbis per se opposed the marriage of minors, but because marriage requires dat, consent. It's something that occurs in your rosh, in your head. Being married to somebody is a legal contract. It's not a physical contract, and we could talk about that on another occasion. The rabbis understood marriage as a mental process, and children, minors, are not old enough to have the ability to legally consent or to legally engage in contracts. And that's considered a law. In other words, we don't check each individual child. We just statutorily decide, or the rabbi statutorily decided, that minors cannot engage in marriage or any other really legal contract. However, there was the need for the social institution of marriage for minor girls. It's no secret that they lived in a patriarchy. A girl whose father had died. Now, one more piece of background. A father may marry off a minor girl because he takes her role in the consent. The Torah says, "Et biti natati leish hazeh." The father gave the girl to this other person, this other man, and that means that the father has a right to marry off his daughter, but only the father. A minor girl cannot contract marriage for herself, and in the absence of her father, who is going to marry her off? And the rabbis come up with this institution of marriage for a minor through her, or arranged by her brother or by her mother. And that institution is largely considered d'Rabbanan, of rabbinic status, although we may have a little bit of an echo of an argument about that in our sugya. And the ramifications for it are, for that marriage, only for that type of marriage, a girl may annul it or refuse it when she turns of majority age. Because it wasn't engaged in, it wasn't contracted with her consent and without her father's consent, when she turns of majority age, let's call that around the year 12 and a half, she can refuse the marriage and go out without a divorce. But Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua argue about the manifestations, the ramifications of that halacha, as do Shmuel and Rav, the Amoraim. According to Rabbi Eliezer, the same status applies to a girl who is divorced or to a girl who goes out through mi'un, through refusal. In all of those cases, or excuse me, that would be really not just it would be a ramification of Rabbi Eliezer's position, and it would be the same as Rav's position in the Gemara. He says it in the beginning of the Gemara, Tana yotzeit baget, ein la ketubah, v'chol she'ein me'amenet. A girl, a minor girl who goes out through divorce, or a girl who refuses the marriage, in either case, it's as if the marriage didn't exist, because, as Rabbi Eliezer says later on, ein ma'aseh ketana kum. The acts of a minor girl do not count for anything. And therefore, the marriage that she engages in until she becomes a minor, if it's dissolved, until she becomes of a majority age, if it's dissolved, it counts for nothing. In other words, it may be saying that rabbinic social institution is for convenience, so that a girl could sort of put herself, or a brother or a mother could put this girl on the way to being married, which would be for her betterment, assumedly. But if it's dissolved before she's married, it counts for nothing. And Shmuel, on the other hand, based on Rabbi Yoshua, says Maaseh Ktana Kum. The Maaseh of the acts of a young girl do count for something. And therefore, if she refuses the marriage, then it's dissolved. But if she goes out through a divorce, then the marriage is as if it has actually existed, and she has a ketubah and all of the general rights that accrue to a girl after she is divorced, or any woman after she is divorced. So we see here two foundational arguments. One is, do the acts of a minor count for anything? Rav and Rabbi Eliezer would say no, and Shmuel and Rabbi Yoshua would say yes. And the other thing is that rabbinically instated institution, rabbinically created institution, marriage for a minor orphan girl, does that have the tokef, the validity, or close to the validity of a deoraita marriage, of a Torahitic, biblical consented marriage? And Rav and Rabbi Eliezer would adopt the more traditional position, saying no, rabbinically created institutions do not have the force of those that we believe are ensconced by the Torah. And Shmuel, Rabbi Yoshua would adopt the more innovative position that says, at least in times, in certain ways, the rabbis can create institutions that have the same force, legal force, as those that are there in the Torah. This is a large meta argument that appears all over the place throughout rabbinic literature, and something to keep your eye out for as you're learning all sorts of other sugyot.